The gleaming halls of the Galactic Council's headquarters always made Ada feel proud. As she walked past the towering crystal walls, her steps echoed with purpose. The other species they had discovered in their centuries of space exploration had built impressive things, but none quite matched the pure perfection of Council architecture. Each angle was precise, each surface flawless, just like their civilization. Ada's communication device buzzed softly. She was being summoned to the High Chamber, an honor rarely given to even the most decorated tracking officers. Her silver uniform reflected the soft blue light as she changed direction, heading for the central elevator. "Captain Ada," the Council eye announced as she entered the High Chamber. "Your service record shows 27 successful tracking missions, 0 failures." 3 Council members sat before her, their forms barely visible behind the traditional light screens that protected their identity. Ada stood straighter, her 4 arms clasped behind her back in the formal position. "We have a situation that requires your unique skills," the central figure said. "We've detected an anomaly moving through our most advanced systems. A human." Ada's inner eyelid flickered in surprise, the only sign of emotion she allowed herself to show. Humans were a curious species, barely able to reach their own moon when they were first discovered. The Council had classified them as a Level 2 civilization, primitive by any standard. With respect, Ada said, "Why would a human presence concern the Council? Their technology is centuries behind ours." The figure on the right leaned forward. "This human has been changing things. They appear on our most advanced worlds, spend time among our greatest minds, and leave behind chaos." "Chaos?" Ada asked. "Ideas," the left figure said, as if the word itself was dangerous. "New ways of thinking. They've convinced the logic masters of Dimension 9 to create art. They've taught the war minds of System 87 to make peace. They've shown the energy lords how to build power sources using simple physics we dismissed millennia ago." Ada's professional calm slipped slightly. "How is that possible? Our civilizations are perfect. We have achieved the maximum potential in our fields of study." "Exactly," the central figure said. "And yet this human moves among us, wearing our forms, speaking our languages, seeding doubt about our perfection. Your mission is to find them, study their methods, and bring them here for examination." The right figure added, "We must understand how a primitive species can cause such disruption. The Council fears this human may be using unknown technology or possessing abilities we haven't detected." Ada received the mission details through her neural link. The human had been tracked to 7 advanced systems so far. In each one, they had somehow passed as a native species, despite having none of the advanced shape-shifting technology that would make such deception possible. "The human's impact is spreading," the central figure said. "The unity mind of System 54 has started asking questions about their economic system. The Pure Logic Academy is debating the value of imperfection in mathematical equations. This cannot continue." Ada studied the data flowing through her mind. The pattern was strange. The human never stole anything, never caused direct harm. They simply talked to people, shared ideas, and moved on. But in their wake, centuries of carefully crafted perfection began to crack. "I accept the mission," Ada said. "I will find this human and uncover their methods." The Council members nodded in unison. "Remember," the central figure warned, "this human has evaded our best detection systems. They appear to have an unusual ability to understand and mimic advanced species without any technological aid. Be careful, Captain. Don't underestimate them, simply because they come from a primitive world." As Ada left the High Chamber, her mind was already plotting search patterns and probability matrices. A single human, disrupting the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. It seemed impossible. Humans were emotional, unpredictable, and limited by their simple biology. How could one of them cause such significant changes in societies that had achieved perfection? She entered her ship, the sleek vessel responding to her thoughts instantly. As the engines hummed to life, Ada allowed herself a small moment of anticipation. This would be her greatest challenge, hunting a being that seemed to break all the rules of what was possible. But she was the best tracking officer in the Council's history, and no primitive human would change that fact. The ship lifted off, its course set for the human's last known location. Ada had no way of knowing that this mission would change not just her career, but everything she believed about perfection, progress, and the true meaning of advancement. The market district of New Intelligence bustled with activity as beings of pure energy floated between crystal towers. Ada stood out in her solid form, but no one paid her much attention. The energy lords were too focused on their newest obsession, a simple fusion device that defied their advanced theories. It shouldn't work, the merchant told her, his form flickering with excitement. We abandoned such basic designs thousands of years ago. But look. His energy field expanded, showing her a hologram of the device. Someone showed us how to adjust the magnetic field in a way we never considered. It's so simple, yet it produces more power than our quantum collectors. Ada studied the design carefully. It was exactly the kind of disruption she'd been warned about. Primitive human science being used to solve problems that had stumped advanced civilizations. This person who showed you the design, she said, what did they look like? The merchant's glow pulsed thoughtfully. Like one of us, of course. An energy being named Ray. Spent a few cycles here studying our power systems, asked interesting questions, made us think differently about our old assumptions. Ada's tracking systems hummed as they recorded every detail. The human had somehow appeared as a being of pure energy, impossible without technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. Yet all her scans showed no signs of advanced tech being used. She moved on to her next lead. The Library of Perfect Thoughts was a place where the galaxy's most logical species gathered to share their flawless reasoning. But today, something was different. The usual silent exchanges of pure logic had been replaced by actual sounds. Debates, discussions, even laughter. It started after Rod visited. A librarian told her, their crystalline form shimmering with unusual emotion. They asked why we never included imperfect thoughts in our collections. Said that examining flawed logic could lead to new understanding. The librarian's crystal structure flickered with what Ada recognized as embarrassment. We thought it was nonsense, but then we tried it. Now we're discovering patterns we never saw before. Ada's inner eyelid flickered rapidly as she added this information to her growing file. The human had appeared here as a crystalline being, just as they had appeared as an energy form in the market. Her scan still showed no technology that could explain these transformations. The pattern continued at every stop. On a world of silicon-based life, they called themselves rock and taught art to beings who had only ever created perfect geometric shapes. In the digital realms, they were known as binary and introduced the concept of creative coding to artificial intelligences who had only ever followed strict protocols. But it was in the war mind's territory that Ada found the most surprising changes. The warrior race that had fought the same enemies for 10,000 years now hosted peace talks in their battle arenas. Their leaders spoke of a visitor named Blade who had shown them how their endless war had become a comfortable routine rather than a path to victory. They showed us that true strength isn't in fighting the same battles forever. A war-mind elder told her, his battle-scarred armor reflecting the light of 3 suns. Real power lies in knowing when to end a fight and how to win through peace. Ada sat in her ship that night, surrounded by the data she had collected. The human's pattern was becoming clear, yet it made no sense. They didn't just disguise themselves as other species. They seemed to truly understand each civilization they visited. They knew exactly which questions to ask, which small changes would cause the biggest shifts in thinking. Her logical mind struggled with the evidence. Humans were supposed to be simple creatures, yet this one was transforming the galaxy's most advanced societies with nothing more than ideas and questions. They didn't use superior technology or force. Instead, they used something far more powerful, the ability to see past the assumptions of perfection that limited each civilization. As she prepared her report for the council, Ada found herself starting to question her own assumptions. She had been trained to track physical evidence, energy signatures, and technological traces. But how do you track someone who moves through the galaxy armed with nothing but new ways of thinking? Her ship's AI interrupted her thoughts. It had detected an unusual gathering on a nearby space station, a meeting of different species discussing new ideas about art, science, and philosophy. Ada set course immediately. Perhaps this time, she would find more than just traces of her target's influence. Perhaps this time, she would finally understand how a primitive human was teaching the galaxy's most advanced beings how to think differently. The space station's gathering hall buzzed with an energy Ada had never experienced before. Species that normally avoided each other now sat together, sharing ideas and asking questions. A group of war minds listened intently to an energy lord's explanation of their new power system. Crystalline beings debated art with silicon life forms. Even the pure logic minds were engaged in passionate discussions about the value of imperfection. Ada moved through the crowd, her sensors working overtime to process all the interactions. She picked up fragments of conversations that made her inner eyelid flicker rapidly. Did you know humans still use wheels? Such a simple thing, but they found thousands of ways to use them. They make mistakes and learn from them instead of trying to be perfect from the start. Fascinating. Their music has something called wrong notes that somehow make it better. How is that even possible? She found an empty corner and reviewed her latest data. The humans' influence had spread faster than anyone expected. Advanced civilizations that hadn't changed their ways in thousands of years were now experimenting with new ideas daily. The Council's latest update had been filled with concern about the growing chaos. A deep voice interrupted her thoughts. Interesting gathering, isn't it? Ada turned to find a war-mind elder studying the crowd. His battle armor was decorated with paint, something unheard of in their perfectly practical society. I'm looking for someone, Ada said carefully. Someone who's been teaching new ideas to different species. The war-mind's eyes glowed warmly. Ah, you mean the wandering teacher. They visited our world as one of us, but somehow knew things we'd forgotten. Did you know we used to create art on our armor before battles? We thought it was just primitive decoration, but they showed us how it helped warriors express their hopes and fears, making them stronger fighters. How did they appear to you? Ada asked, her tracking systems fully focused. Like any war mind, but different too. They moved with a grace we'd forgotten, asked questions we'd stopped asking, made us remember that war isn't just about perfect strategy, it's about understanding your enemy too. As Ada left the war mind, her ship's AI reported a new signal. On a nearby planet, a group of pure logic beings had started teaching children through stories instead of direct data transfer. They claimed a visitor had shown them how narrative thinking could improve problem-solving abilities. Ada's ship landed on the logic world's surface as its third sun set. The teaching center looked different from the usual pure geometric shapes. The buildings now had curves and artistic elements that served no practical purpose. The children's test scores have improved by 47%. The center's director told her, "We didn't think it was possible. Our teaching methods were already perfect." The director's crystal form sparkled with excitement. But our visitor, they called themselves Reason, showed us that perfect logic alone isn't enough. You need imagination to see new solutions. Ada studied the children's area. Among the precise mathematical models and logic diagrams, she found drawings, creative works that combined accuracy with impossible things, a formula for calculating planetary orbits decorated with smiling stars, a quantum physics equation surrounded by a dragon made of numbers. Back in her ship, Ada realized something was changing inside her too. She had started her mission looking for advanced technology or special powers that could explain the human's abilities. Instead, she was finding something else, a kind of strength that had nothing to do with perfection. Her console blinked with an urgent message from the Council. More changes were spreading. The energy lords had started telling jokes. The war minds were writing poetry about peace. The pure logic beings were dancing. Everything they had built, all their careful systems of perfect order, were being transformed by simple human ideas about creativity, emotion, and learning from mistakes. Ada sent back a different kind of report this time. She didn't list facts and figures about the humans' movements. Instead, she wrote about how they were teaching the galaxy's most advanced species a lesson about the power of imperfection. The human doesn't change civilizations by being more advanced, she wrote. They change them by showing them what they've lost in their quest for perfection. As she finished her report, her ship's sensors detected something new. A small trading vessel had just docked at a nearby station. Its captain's biosignature was unlike anything she'd seen before. It seemed to shift and change, adapting to match whoever scanned it. Ada set her course immediately. Perhaps this time, she would finally meet the human who was teaching the galaxy how to think differently. The trading station hung in space like a silver flower, its petals open to welcome ships from across the galaxy. Ada's vessel docked smoothly in one of the outer bays. Her target ship was somewhere inside, but its signal kept changing, shifting between different species' signatures, as if it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. The station's main market level was crowded with beings of all kinds. Energy lords floated past silicon creatures, while war minds chatted with pure logic beings about art and music. Ada's 4 arms stayed close to her sides as she moved through the crowd, her sensors sweeping for any trace of the unusual ship's captain. She found the small trading shop easily enough. The sign above it simply read Tom's Place in several galaxy languages. Inside, the shop was unlike anything Ada had ever seen. One wall held war mind battle paintings next to energy lord light sculptures. Another displayed simple mechanical devices next to quantum computers. Everything was mixed together without any logical order, yet somehow it all fit perfectly. "Welcome," a voice said from behind the counter. "Would you like some tea?" Ada turned to find a creature she couldn't quite focus on. At first glance, he looked like her own species, but when she blinked, he seemed more like a war mind. Another blink, and he could have been an energy lord. Her sensors couldn't get a clear reading. "I'm Tom," he said, pouring 2 cups of a steaming brown liquid. "You look like someone who's been asking a lot of questions lately." Ada's inner eyelid flickered rapidly. This had to be him, the human she'd been tracking. But how was he doing this? Her scans showed no technology that could explain his ability to seem like everyone and no one at the same time. "The tea is from Earth," Tom said, pushing 1 cup toward her. "Nothing special about it, just dried leaves in hot water. But sometimes the simplest things can be the most interesting, don't you think?" Ada found herself sitting down, even though she hadn't planned to. "You're the one I've been looking for," she said. "The human who's been changing things." Tom smiled, and somehow his smile looked right, no matter what species he appeared to be. "I haven't changed anything," he said. "I just ask questions and share ideas. Everything else comes from the people themselves." "But how do you do it?" Ada asked, her tracking system still trying to get a clear reading on him. "How do you appear as different species? Where is your technology?" Tom laughed softly. "No technology. Humans are adaptable. It's how we survived on Earth. We learn, we change, we figure things out. When I talk to war minds, I try to understand how they think. When I meet energy lords, I learn to see the world as they do. The rest is just being human." Ada's sensors picked up no lies in his words, but what he was saying seemed impossible. "The Council thinks you're dangerous," she said. "They believe you're disrupting the perfect order of advanced civilizations." "Perfect order," Tom repeated thoughtfully. "Tell me, Ada, have you enjoyed watching all these different species learn from each other? Seeing them try new things, making mistakes, and discovering something wonderful in those mistakes?" Ada thought about everything she'd seen. The war minds finding peace through art. The pure logic beings learning through stories. the energy lords laughing at jokes. "It's chaos," she said, but her voice held no conviction. "It's life," Tom corrected gently. "Perfect order is just another way of saying no more growth. Humans never achieved perfect order. Maybe that's why we can still see possibilities where others see limits." He stood up, his form shifting slightly as he moved. "You have a choice now, Ada. You can try to arrest me for the crime of asking questions, or you can ask yourself why the most advanced species in the galaxy are so eager to learn from a primitive human." Ada watched as Tom began serving other customers, talking and laughing with each one, as if he were one of their kind. Her perfect, logical mind struggled with what she was seeing. Everything she knew said it was impossible, but everything she had seen in the past few days told her that impossible things could be the most important ones to understand. She left the shop without attempting to arrest him, her mind full of new questions. Her next report to the council would be very interesting indeed. If she could figure out how to explain that the most advanced technology in the galaxy was no match for simple human adaptability and understanding. Ada couldn't sleep that night. She sat in her ship, replaying her conversation with Tom over and over. Something wasn't adding up. Her sensors had recorded everything, but each time she watched the recording, Tom appeared differently. In one viewing, he looked like her species. In another, he seemed more like a war mind. Yet the voice, the movements, the way he understood each customer, it was always the same person. She pulled up her files from previous investigations. The energy lords had seen him as pure energy. The crystal beings had described him as one of their own. The war minds had sworn he was a warrior, but none of them had mentioned any technology that could create such perfect disguises. Then she remembered something Tom had said. Humans are adaptable. It's how we survived on Earth. Ada's inner eyelid flickered rapidly as a new thought formed. She had been looking for advanced technology, for some trick or device that let Tom change his appearance. But what if there was no technology at all? What if humans had a different kind of power? The ability to truly understand other species so well that they saw him as one of their own. She quickly checked the station's records. Tom's shop had appeared 3 days ago, but already it had become a popular meeting place for different species. In her recordings, she watched him serve tea to an energy lord while discussing power systems in perfect technical terms. Minutes later, he was showing a war mind how to mix paint colors, speaking with the deep understanding of a warrior who had found peace through art. Ada's hands moved quickly over her console, pulling up everything she knew about humans. They were one of the few species that had developed on a world with countless different environments. Most advanced species came from planets with stable, uniform conditions. But humans had learned to live in freezing cold, burning heat, high mountains, deep valleys, and even underwater. More important, humans had learned to work together despite their differences. While other species developed into uniform societies with single ways of thinking, humans kept their diversity. They argued, fought, made peace, and worked together without ever becoming exactly the same. That's it, Ada whispered to herself. Tom wasn't changing his appearance at all. He was adapting himself to truly understand each species he met. When he talked to energy lords about power systems, he thought like they did. When he discussed art with war minds, he felt what they felt. He wasn't pretending. He was connecting with them on a level so deep that they naturally saw him as one of their own. She jumped up from her console and rushed back to the trading station. She had to talk to Tom again, had to understand how humans had developed this incredible ability to adapt and connect. But when she reached Tom's shop, she found only an empty room. The paintings, sculptures, and strange devices were gone. On the counter sat a single cup of earth tea, still warm, with a note beside it. "Dear Ada," the note read. "By now you've probably figured it out. Humans don't need fancy technology to understand others. We just need to listen, learn, and care. Your advanced civilizations have achieved perfect order, but they've lost something important along the way. They've forgotten how to change, how to see things differently, how to learn from those they think are below them. If you want to understand more, come find me. I'll be teaching art to some quantum computers in the Silicon system. They're very excited about learning to make mistakes on purpose. Ready to learn? Tom. Ada picked up the cup of tea and took a sip. It was simple, just flavored water like Tom had said, but somehow it made her think differently about everything she knew. The council wanted her to stop him from disrupting their perfect societies. But now she understood. Their societies needed disruption. They needed to remember how to change and grow. She sent a brief message to the council. Target located. Continuing investigation. Warning. Exposure to human adaptability may cause unexpected growth in perfect societies. Then she set her course for the Silicon system, smiling as she imagined quantum computers learning to draw pictures just for fun. She had started this mission looking for a threat to galactic civilization. Instead, she had found something much more interesting, a chance to learn how imperfect humans had mastered the one skill that perfect societies had forgotten. The quantum computers of the Silicon system were drawing flowers when Ada arrived. Not perfect, mathematical representations of flowers, but wobbly, uneven sketches that looked like a child's first attempts at art. The sight of such advanced machines making imperfect art on purpose made Ada's inner eyelid flutter rapidly. "They're learning that beauty doesn't always follow rules," said a Silicon being who introduced herself as Core. "Our visitor showed us that errors can create unexpected patterns. Now our computers are discovering whole new ways of processing information." "This visitor," Ada said carefully. "Did they call themselves Tom?" Core's crystalline form sparkled. "Oh no, they were called Data. Looked just like one of our quantum processors, but they thought so differently. They asked why we never let our computers make mistakes just to see what would happen." Ada nodded, understanding now how Tom worked. He had appeared to them as a quantum being because he had truly thought like one, had genuinely wanted to understand their way of seeing the world. But he had also brought that unique human perspective that saw possibilities in imperfection. She followed Tom's trail across 3 more systems. On each world, she found the same pattern. He would arrive appearing as one of the local species, spend time truly understanding their way of life, and then ask simple questions that changed everything. In the logic spheres, she found mathematical proofs that included poetry. Tom had shown them as binary, teaching them that pure logic could dance with emotion to create deeper understanding. On the energy planes, she discovered young energy lords playing games with their power fields, making shapes just for fun. They spoke of Spark, who had shown them how play could lead to serious discoveries. In the war mine training grounds, she watched warrior children learning to paint their feelings before battle practice. Their teachers explained how flow had taught them that understanding emotions made them stronger fighters. Ada's reports to the council changed with each visit. She stopped trying to explain Tom's methods in terms of technology or power. Instead, she wrote about how he taught advanced civilizations to remember things they had forgotten in their rush to become perfect. "The human doesn't break societies," she wrote in one report. "He reminds them how to bend, how to grow, how to see with new eyes. Each species he meets learns something different because he truly understands what they need to remember." The council's responses grew shorter and more confused. They couldn't understand why their best tracking officer now wrote about art and emotion instead of tactical data. They didn't see why she included children's drawings and warrior poems with her official reports. But Ada was learning. Each place Tom had visited showed her something new about human adaptability. Humans had never achieved the perfect societies that other species had built. Instead, they had kept something more valuable: the ability to change, to learn, to see things differently. She found recordings of his teachings in a war mind archive. Tom appeared as a perfect warrior in the video, but his words were pure human wisdom. Perfect societies can only copy what they already know. But when you learn to embrace imperfection, you can create things that have never existed before. In a quantum library, she discovered notes from his discussions with artificial minds. "Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Humans make mistakes all the time. That's how we learn what's possible. Perfect calculations will only tell you what you already know. Beautiful errors show you what might be. Ada's pursuit changed from a hunt into a journey of discovery. She still followed Tom's trail, but now she looked forward to finding what he had taught each society she visited. Her ship's database filled with art, music, stories, and new ideas from across the galaxy, all sparked by one human's ability to truly understand and connect with different species. The Council sent her a final warning. Return to your primary mission. Find the human. Stop this spread of chaos. Ada sent back a simple reply. I am following my mission. I'm learning how one primitive species might be the greatest teachers in the galaxy. Next report will come from the Edge Worlds. They say someone called Mind is teaching digital beings how to dream. The Learning Center on World 9 had always been a place of strict rules and perfect order. Children of the planet's silicon-based species sat in exact rows, absorbing knowledge through direct data transfer. They never asked questions. They never made mistakes. They never imagined anything new. But today was different. Ada stood in the doorway, watching as the children gathered in a circle on the floor. In the center stood Tom, or teacher, as they knew him, looking exactly like one of their crystalline elders. But he wasn't teaching them facts or uploading data. He was telling them a story. And then, Tom said, his crystalline form gleaming, the little star decided to dance differently from all the other stars. It didn't want to follow the same perfect pattern. It wanted to try something new. The children's crystal forms sparkled with excitement. One of them raised a shimmering arm. But teacher, stars can't dance differently. They follow gravitational laws. Tom smiled. Ah, but what if they could? What if we imagine something impossible? Sometimes, thinking about impossible things helps us discover new possible ones. Ada watched as the children began to share their own ideas about dancing stars. Their theories mixed imagination with complex physics in ways that their society had never considered before. They were learning to play with ideas, to explore possibilities beyond perfect facts. The Council's latest message felt heavy in Ada's mind. They had ordered her to arrest Tom immediately. This disruption of perfect societies must end, they had written. But as she watched him teach, she finally understood the full truth of what humans brought to the galaxy. Tom wasn't destroying perfect societies. He was saving them from a far worse fate: the death of growth, the end of discovery, the loss of wonder. Each species he visited remembered something they had forgotten in their quest for perfection. The joy of learning, the value of questions, the power of seeing things differently. She stepped into the classroom just as Tom was showing the children how to create art with their natural crystal formations. The patterns they made were beautiful because they were imperfect, each one unique and unexpected. I wondered when you would join us, Tom said, still focusing on helping a young crystal being shape their light into colors. Have you learned what you needed to know? Ada looked at her tracking devices, her perfect technology that had never quite managed to understand how Tom did what he did. The Council wants me to stop you, she said. They think you're dangerous. And what do you think? Tom asked, helping another child discover how to make their crystal body produce rainbow patterns. I think, Ada said slowly, that perfection without growth isn't really perfect at all. I think humans never achieved perfect societies because they were too busy trying new things, making mistakes, learning, and growing. And I think that might be the most perfect thing of all. Tom turned to face her fully, and for the first time, she saw him as he truly was, not a being who could change his shape, but one who could understand and connect with anyone by truly seeing the world through their eyes. So what will you tell the Council? Ada watched as the children began teaching each other new ways to create light patterns. Their laughter filled the room, another new thing in their perfect society. I'll tell them the truth, she said. That humans aren't primitive at all. They're just perfect in a different way. Perfect at being imperfect, perfect at growing, perfect at helping others remember how to grow too. She sent her final report to the council there in that classroom, watching the future of a perfect society learn how to be wonderfully imperfect. Mission completed. The human has been found. Recommendation: create a new position, teacher of imperfection. Because the most advanced species in the galaxy need to learn from the ones who never stop learning themselves. Tom gathered the children for one more story, and this time Ada sat down to listen too. She had started this mission hunting for a threat to galactic civilization. Instead, she had found its greatest hope, the human gift of seeing wonder in imperfection, possibility in mistakes, and new paths to growth in the space between what is and what could be.